The relationship between student motivation, parental involvement, and reading, group number 2. Unit 1, literature review. Our rationale for research. As educators and novice research practitioners who predominantly focus on the development of literacy skills, the relationship between student motivation and reading is an area of focus that we are interested in inquiring into for several reasons. In our contemporary society, literacy skills have been potentially affected by the influx of social media and technology advancements, which has captivated our students more than the written word. As well, it seems that with a greater focus on multiliteracies and developing literate students, the gaps in literacy increase despite new efforts and strategies focused on diminishing this gap. With the increase in technology use in schools and a seemingly correlating decrease in reading literacy, it appears that engagement to text is evolving as the way we read continues to change.
Here are the literature review references that we used. Factors that affect student motivation. As evident in the literature we have reviewed, we have determined the following. Higher interest texts and topics affect student motivation. Teachers' expectations of gender roles affect student motivation. And academic ability affects student motivation.
In our literature review, we highlighted the crucial role that higher interest in texts and topics play in the development of student motivation and consequently increased reading literacy. Researcher Alhamdu argues that individuals who are not engaged in a topic or text not only do not learn the desired content, but also ultimately do not receive a quality education. Researchers Michael Becker, Nellie McElvany, and Martha Kortenbrook explain that forms of extrinsic motivation, such as incentive programs, ultimately help increase intrinsic motivation and cultivate a culture of reading. However, fundamentally, students lack motivation to improve their literacy because they do not endure progress and competence. Unlike Becker, McElvany, and Kortenbrook, researcher Linda B. Gambrill argues that extrinsic motivation in the form of verbal praise and scaffolding is far more effective in increasing student motivation, competence, and consequently literacy than incentives such as prizes.
We read literature that reviewed the relationship between gender and reading motivation. The literature review shows how gender plays a role in a student's motivation to read. Researchers must consider complex factors regarding how one's literacy is formed through learned environmental gender roles, gender differences in social development, a student's primary discourse, and external values placed on reading. The motivation to read can stem from expectancy value theory, defined as a concept in which motivation depends on the extent to which an individual expects success or failure in an undertaking and the value that an individual ascribes to the task, from Applegate. According to research reviewed, reading motivation levels of females are consistent and significantly higher than those of males. However, there is little found on gender differences with respect to self-efficacy as readers, but only for the value assigned to reading, again from Applegate. Children start to acquire gender stereotypes as early as 2 to 3 years old. Teachers' expectations of boys discourages engagement with texts and decreases motivation and value in reading, as reading is designated an activity for girls. Waltner Brown and Hanover.
We reviewed literature for academic ability in relationship to a student's motivation. The literature reviewed demonstrates how a student's academic ability affects their motivation to read. They take into consideration the skill set that a student has and put that in comparison with whether they demonstrate high or low motivation in learning literacy instruction. Erickson and Wharton McDonald discuss the importance of self-motivation in literacy beginning at a young age. They believe this could be achieved through the support of a child's basic psychological needs for autonomy, confidence, and relatedness while building foundational skills. Malloy, Marinac, Gambrill, and Mazzoni explain the MPRR, which is a tool used to help teachers create a motivating literacy classroom. McGowan, Norgate, and Warhurst conduct a study to find how a student's reading skill level affects their reading motivation. Researchers use this information to compare good and poor readers and their motivation. Bullard discusses the effectiveness of different reading intervention programs and the effect they have on student skills and motivation. The researcher goes into depth about the relationship between reading competence and motivation.
These are the following terms that we defined based off of information that we gathered in our literature review. Higher interest, the inner tendency of an individual. This term was developed by Alhamdu, 2016. Intrinsic motivation, the disposition to read purely for the enjoyment, interest, and excitement of reading. Becker and McElvany, 2010. Extrinsic motivation, the use of incentive programs, verbal praise, and scaffolding to help cultivate a culture of reading and increase intrinsic motivation. Gambrell, 2011. Expectancy value theory, a concept in which motivation depends on the extent to which an individual expects success or failure in an undertaking and the value that individual ascribes to the task. Applegate, 2010.
Engagement, a student's active focus on assignments and subjects in the learning process. Nair, 2017. Mastery goal orientation, a focus on self-development and a willingness to attain new knowledge and skills. Nair, 2017. Self-concept, a student's task-specific perceptions of being able to successfully negotiate the various aspects and processes of reading, such as decoding new words, using comprehension strategies effectively, and expressing their thoughts about what they have read. Malloy, 2013. Self-efficacy theory, people's judgment of their capabilities to organize and execute courses of action required to attain designated types of performances. Buller, 2017.
Our research question is, how do three mothers of students in schools that we work in the greater New York City area explain the patterns of early literacy motivational experiences?